Thank you for tuning in to For the People News. I'm your host, Rob. Today is February 25th, 2019. This is episode 2. The title of this episode is Things in Venezuela Are Heating Up. So before we hop into the main headlines, I just want to go over a few other ones I found to be amusing. Reports were coming out before the Oscars that advertisers were expecting so few Oscar viewers. They were demanding money-back guarantees. Okay, the advertisers who have purchased slots during the Academy Awards are so concerned about audience numbers for Sunday night's broadcast that they're asking for the Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts, and Science, which puts on the show, to issue ratings thresholds guarantees. I find that kind of funny. Oscar viewership has been declining by double digits percentages for close to a decade, but until now, after the failed public efforts to reverse that drop, advertisers failed to take much notice. Assuming that the broadcast, which still draws more than 20 million viewers, was worth the investment, it's incredibly rare for advertisers to demand any audience thresholds for live events like the Oscars or the Super Bowl, even when they don't do well. It's not heard of. According to Deadline, though, the parade of embarrassing issues dogging the Oscars broadcast has forced ABC, which airs the ceremony, to guarantee a baseline of viewers to advertisers, which could result in ABC having to give money back to if advertising expectations aren't met. Now the Oscars are still a big deal. Just, people aren't stupid. So, year after year they decline in ratings. They're getting close to the danger zone. So, another small headline is the Trump administration issued a rule Friday barring Planned Parenthood and other groups that offer abortions or abortion referrals from participating in the $286 million federal family planning program. Washington Report reported. Alright, they're also saying, per the Post, critics of the mandate say it incredibly defends Planned Parenthood, which provides general health care and STD treatment in addition to abortion services. The Title X program mostly serves low-income women. Supporters of the rule and anti-abortion groups like the Susan B. Anthony list say it will help taxpayers and keep taxpayers from paying for Planned Parenthood. Which, my personal opinion, a woman could do what she wants. Abortion, if they feel they need an abortion, they have to have one. That's on them, But for us taxpayers to pay for it, I don't agree with that. Not at all. Alrighty. So this is another little scary thing that's happening over in Antarctica. So an iceberg 30 times the size of Manhattan is about to break off from the Atlantic ice shelf. Antarctic ice shelf, excuse me. This is the largest iceberg to break off from the ice shelf since observations began back in 1915. And researchers are closely monitoring it to find out whether such a loss will result in the shelf becoming unstable. So that's something to keep an eye on. Definitely. Alrighty. So, clashes erupted along the Venezuela, Colombian, and Venezuela, Brazil borders this weekend as forces loyal to Venezuelan President Maduro worked to block protesters and Venezuelan citizens from accessing trucks full of aid supplies, including medicine and food. This is coming from a CNN report. That aid from the United States, Canada, Germany and the United Kingdom is piling up along both borders following an order from Maduro to seal off roadways from both Colombia and Brazil, preventing the aid shipments from reaching Venezuelans, more than 10% of whom are said to be starving. Maduro believes the aid is a precursor to a United States-led coup designed to pull him from power and replace him with opposition leader Mr. Juan, who claims himself as the president of Venezuela, even though Maduro was duly reelected. The proclaimed president is the head of the country's parliament. He declared himself president following what he says was Maduro's illegitimate reelection. Guerrero, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, who is himself a socialist, says Maduro manipulated the election results, bringing a swift end to Maduro's regime under the country's constitution. Guerrero has been trying to spearhead the trucks full of aid across the border, but so far only 2 trucks have made it to their destinations. Convinced they are full of arms for Venezuelan's military groups, the Venezuelan government has sent riot police and Venezuelan troops to prevent the trucks from making it to the people. Now, Maduro is not totally opposed to aid. He accepted $9 million from the United Nations at the end of 2008, but told the country this week that he was refusing physical supplies because Venezuelans are not beggars. On Friday, the blockades turned violent, leading to clashes across Venezuela's borders with both Brazil and Colombia. Trucks were torched, tear gas was deployed, around 300 people were injured, and at least 4 people were killed, according to the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. The United Nations called on the government of Venezuela to recall its troops, but maintained that they would not get involved any further in the clashes, having already provided aid to Venezuelan citizens as an untenable political act. United States Secretary of State Mike Pompeo also cataloged the violence on Twitter. He said the U.S. condemns the attacks on civilians in Venezuela by Maduro's thugs. These attacks have resulted in deaths and injuries. Our deepest sympathies to the families of those who have died due to these criminal acts. We join their demand for justice. Pompeo tweeted with a photo of the burning trucks. You'll find that tweet on Twitter. Now, the war drums are beating for Venezuela. They're beaten. They are beaten. So that's on the mainstream media. Like I said, CNN reported that. So isn't it funny when Trump aligns himself with the goals of the deep state, how there's no attack from the liberal media or the mainstream media? CNN's on his side on this one. I find that funny. But I mean, if you do a little bit more research behind on what happened this weekend, you could find truth, not the fake truth that the mainstream media is trying to push onto us. So if you go do a little further, this is becoming hilarious. Unelected Venezuelan wannabe president Guido, I don't even know how to pronounce his name. He was supposed to triumphantly lead a Trojan horse aid convoy into Venezuela from Colombia, but he completely failed and achieved nothing in the long run. He is now in exile in Colombia, while legitimate Venezuelan President Maduro has cut all diplomatic ties with their neighbor. Things got so desperate yesterday that the Venezuelan opposition in Colombia decided to set the aid convoy on fire and blame Maduro. However, if you're gonna make a hoax, you should probably make sure that people are not filming you when you're trying to make these plans. I mean, there's video surfaced, and you could hear the Venezuelan opposition talking about using gasoline and making Molotov cocktails, literally just minutes before the aid convoy was set on fire. You know, the gas has arrived. You could be heard in the videos moments before the trucks were burned. Of course, the mainstream media blame Madero. You know, the video is straightforward. I mean, you can see the opposition prepare Molotov cocktails, the same Molotov cocktails that were used to set the trucks on fire. If you go look at the photo, in the photo you can even see where the Venezuelan forces are located and where the cockroaches are located. They can't even make a hoax correctly, but they want to remove an entire elected government from power. It's not going to go well for them. This comes as part of a larger campaign to create justification for an invasion of the oil-rich Latin American country. Days ago, opposition figures began spreading fake news that up to 10 Venezuelans were shot at the Venezuelan security forces and were rushed to Brazil to be treated in a hospital. But one problem with this, no evidence has emerged of this, no photos, no hospital documents, no official announcements from the Brazilian government. So take that with a grain of salt. Let's see, where else we at here? All right, so the fake president has not secured any power in Venezuela. The military remains loyal to Madero, with only 5 recorded defections so far, 3 regular soldiers and 2 superiors, but they're not in direct control of any units. All government ministries have remained loyal. Overwhelming majority of ambassadors have remained loyal. The majority of the international community recognize Madero as the president. The only thing that can help save this coup attempt is a direct military invasion of Venezuela. For everybody's sake, let's hope we hope to never see that. Vietnam 2.0 right there. That would be bad. So Russia's coming out and saying U.S. plans to buy weapons for Venezuelan opposition in Eastern Europe. A Russian diplomat warned, saying, "We have information that companies from the U.S. and its NATO allies are considering the possibility of buying a large batch of weapons in one of Eastern European countries in order to provide them to the Venezuelan opposition. The batch will reportedly include heavy machine guns, grenade launchers, portable missile launchers, and ammunition for light weapons and artillery systems." So this is what they mean when they talk about delivering humanitarian aid. When they say humanitarian aid, that's just the cover to get weapons and everything else they need, soldiers, mercenaries, anything they need into that country that they're trying to send that to. All right, on January 23rd, the Venezuelan opposition leader and parliament speaker, whose appointment to that position had been canceled by the country's Supreme Court, declared himself interim president at a rally in the country's capital. Several countries, including the United States, recognize Mr. Juan as the president. Madero in turn blasted the move as a coup staged by Washington and said he was severing diplomatic ties with the U.S. But Russia, Iran, Cuba, Nicaragua, El Salvador, Syria, Turkey, they all voiced support for Madero. And China called for resolving all differences peacefully and warned against foreign interference. So China doesn't want to get directly involved, but they threw in there that no one is to interfere within that country, or then they'll probably get involved.